What's up, guys? It's Kellen here from Start Your Systems, and today we're going to be checking out and talking about the 2024 MX Simulator of Teams. That's right, it's a new event that is being hosted by the MXS Battlegrounds crew. Of course, they put together the SMX playoffs that we just live streamed about a month ago now, and they put this together in place of the Motocross of Nations because the sim community, as I mentioned in another video I did earlier this week, is, you know, it's still there. We're still going to be probably doing some racing in 2025, but I feel like it's slowly going downhill just a little bit, and you know, in terms of amount of people playing and stuff like that. So they're doing this team race, which is, there's a lot of really popular teams in MX Simulator, and some of those even are in MX Bikes or other games as well. But you guys know the familiar ones: Nexus, Phil's, Providence is a new big team that has guys like Seth Surley on it and stuff like that. They're all gonna put one rider in each class in a similar format race to Motocross of Nations. So there's a an MX1 or MXGP class, MX2 class, and an open class, and it's going to be the same exact thing. Your MX1 rider is going to go race 1 and race 3. Your MX2 rider is going to go race 1 and race 2. Your open rider is going to go in race 2 and race 3, and your lowest score is the winning team. And they're going to do it on this track right here, which is 2016, or a pseudo replica of 2016 Glen, Helen, the last time they hosted a national here. And it's built, I believe, by JGMT Bike, who is at the moment, in my opinion, pretty much the top in terms of active creators still making tracks in MX Simulator, at least with his body of work behind him thus far. He has definitely earned the right to be one of those names that's up there. And I don't know if it's just my skill set diminishing in this game or what have you, but I suck on this track, dude. It is a very difficult track. I am getting flopped around all over the place. I'm actually surprised I've made it this far in the lap without crashing, because the 3 or so laps I did before this video, I was yarding up everywhere. So very difficult track, but I think it's designed that way to kind of test the top players in the game, because it's it's not an exclusive thing. It's not like only a handful of Americans and only a handful of French riders or whatever could play if it's the Motocross of Nations, because it's the MX of Teams. It's literally the best of what the best teams have to offer in this game, and it means that we'll probably miss a handful of like really top guys that their team is just so stacked, so they won't be able to field all 6 of their really good dudes on the track or whatever. But there'll still be a lot of talent on the track, and this race is happening, by the way, this coming Wednesday, the 6th of November. Now, I was going to stream this race, and that was fully my intention if we had a baby by now. My wife is very pregnant, past the due date at this point, and I really expected we would already have the baby and be back home for a couple weeks, but she hasn't just yet. So pretty much any second, I'm probably on my way to the hospital. More than likely not going to be able to stream this one, but still wanted to show a little bit of love to this and maybe direct some people the way of this event. So, if you guys look in the comment section below, I will try my very best to direct you in the place of where this race will be hosted in terms of a live stream event. If you're not watching it before the race actually happens and it's after, then I'll include a link as well to the archive of whoever streams it. But yeah, so this is going to be, I think, an interesting kind of litmus test. And I'm also curious to know, for like bikes players or any other games out there, like, is this something that you think should be maybe implemented, not necessarily in place of a Motocross of Nations type event, but even like something extra on top of it, where a random track is picked, maybe one that's not even on the national schedule, like this one of course isn't. Glen Helen not been on the national schedule since 2016, but pick a track like this and get all the best teams together to kind of host a race, because there seems to be a lot of like team pride, like honestly, especially in MX Bikes. There's so many popular like Instagram pages for just teams and stuff that it'd be kind of cool to like get all those social media accounts kind of into it and behind it even. So I'm kind of keen to see how this goes in sim, just for the simple fact of like how much involvement is there. There already seems to be a decent amount of signups in all 3 classes in terms of MX1, MX2, and Open. So they're probably going to have a full gate. I can't imagine they won't, based on what I'm seeing for signups so far. There's going to be a qualifying race on Tuesday and then the actual race on Wednesday. So we'll kind of know like exactly what is going to happen. And I think similar to what happens with the Real Nations, it's like 19 qualified directly in. Then there's a B final that kicks things off on the Wednesday event, and then the 3 motos, which are all 30+2s, I believe. And that starts at 5:30 p.m. Pacific, 8:30 p.m. Eastern on Wednesday. Like I said, I'll try to direct you guys in the right direction for that. But yeah, I think it's a cool concept. It's an interesting idea to see if and how it works. Even thinking of it in terms of like real life, how cool would that be? Like, there's not much teams anymore. A handful of them still do 250 and 450 dabbling, but there's, much more structured 250 and 450 class programs. But like, could you imagine if Team Honda got to trot out Jet, Hunter Lawrence, and Shimoda, or, Hymus, and then Star Racing had Webb and Tomac and Hayden Deegan. And then, look at, like, let's say KTM gets to put out Tom Vial on a 250 and AP and Sexton on a 450. And you kind of get to decide who is the best team. They kind of did this format, sort of, with what was called at that point the SMX Cup in 2016. Very ironic that eventually we know SMX now as Super Motocross. But back then, I think it was literally... maybe it was called Super Motocross Cup, but they just called it SMX Cup because it was like this combined teams/manufacturers cup. The SMX Manufacturers Cup, I think, is what the official name was. And they got riders from KTM and Yamaha, Suzuki, Honda. It ended up being mainly GP guys, but a handful of Americans went over and did it. And, they kind of experimented with it. It seemed like a flop, but I think if they did it at the right venue and a little bit more fanfare behind it, it could have been successful. So I don't know that this is necessarily something we'd ever see IRL, but I think it is, like I said, a very interesting concept for the simple fact that, there's all these teams, all these different riders that ride for teams in these various simulation video games. And I'm sure when MTG comes around, it'll even be more like this. It's just a gnarly, fun group of friends that all hang out and get better at these games together and kind of like feed off of each other a little bit. So, like how cool is it that you kind of, with all your buddies, go to war as a team instead of just as an individual rider? Like, of course, I'm sure there's still going to be individual riders that want to win and do well at this event. But at the end of the day, I think whichever team wins is, what really all the riders are going to be going for and hoping for. And then, a lot of these teams in Sim are kind of ran by guys that not necessarily are racing full time anymore. Like Phil's is kind of the rare one that, Carter obviously is the man behind the mission with Phil Ski and Snowboard because it's his dad that owns the ski and snowboard shop. But other than that, I feel like most of the names I hear of that run all these other teams are kind of hanging out behind the scenes and like don't race, but still like creating stuff and like giving opportunities to good players in the game and stuff. So yeah, I think this will be a very, very cool event. Really excited to see who wins it as well. Like, I generally have no idea. Of course, I've just listed a couple of the teams that I know were pretty good, at least in SMX and towards the end of Outdoors off the top of my head. But there's every reason you could believe that, like, another different random team that is either just forming or has picked up a couple good riders in the offseason, for example, jumps out to the front and does pretty well. Like, obviously, if we see Leclerc back racing Outdoors, he's been kind of backed by Phil's, but is he going to, keep with Phil's going into 2025? Who knows? Obviously, like Seth Surley and Seth Carr, they've been really good 250 and then transitioning to 450s occasionally kind of talents. So those guys will be good. I think there's a lot of different ways that it could go, and it certainly could be a lot of fun. And I think that this track is going to honestly maybe be the biggest interesting factor about it because, like I said, it's so challenging. It is gnarly how rough they made this track. Got a little bit of insight from one of the guys behind the scenes at Battlegrounds who's putting the track together. Or not putting the track together, but putting the event together, and I think he maybe helped a little bit with the track, but they said they kind of tried to mimic it off that really famous Ken Roczen GoPro that he sliced through the field on like the first and second laps of that Glen Helen National that year, and tried to make the ruts look similar. And Glen Helen, in my opinion, has always been kind of one of the gnarlier tracks with how it breaks down. It's a very local track to me. I probably spent more time at Glen Helen than any other moto track in my life. So I know it very well. I know it can get gnarly like this, and especially for the National, it seemed to always break down super crazy. So this doesn't even feel that kind of crazy that it is Glen Helen in this rough, but I'm just not, I guess, good enough at the game anymore to handle it very well. Although now that I'm talking and just kind of chilling, I feel like I've done okay. So I don't know what these lap times are going to be like. These guys might actually kill me by like 30 seconds just because I'm barely cruising around this track. But honestly, this might be kind of cool for any players that are still into Sim to download this track and test your skills, because this is maybe one of the roughest national tracks I've played in years. Like, we've had so many tracks that are, a little bit lightened up, not to go over the top with the erode, because the erode will wear the track in a little bit more. This reminds me a lot of nationals that I used to race, which is pre-erode. The terrain deformation system in mxsim only came in 2017, and I had pretty much retired by that point. So Yeah, it reminds me a lot of tracks like that where everything on the track was pre-made. Like it was all pre-made ruts and bumps and stuff like that. And now that it kind of feels like that again, it's jiving me up a little bit to see how this races with this new generation, because a lot of today's racers, aside from Leclerc, never really did pre-road racing, which is kind of weird to think because I never raced with a road. And I feel like I was racing for a long time in the game, but now it's been 7, almost 8 years since I stepped behind the gate professionally in this game. And yeah, it's been a minute. So there's a lot of more fresh faces in the game, and curious to see how they handle a gnarly, super rough track to start things off like that, because in Willow Road, it'll get gnarlier throughout the moto, and actually maybe even easier in some sense because some of those ruts will dig out and kind of make the flow of it a little bit better. But just off the bat, this track feels really, really tough already. So kind of excited to see how they handle it. Anyway, I have no idea for a prediction for favorites or anything like that. I just wanted to stop by and share this with you guys today, let you know the event's happening. If somehow I end up streaming it, it will be on Start Your Systems TV on YouTube and Twitch, but I find it very unlikely that I will. So again, I'll try to keep you guys up to date on where to find it. And then maybe we'll check in next week or a couple weeks from now when I get a chance to let you guys know how this event all shook down and who won and how the teams all did. So appreciate you guys stopping by regardless. Hopefully you enjoyed this little discussion on the MX Simulator of Teams. Let me know if you guys have any questions or comments in the section below, and I'll get down there and answer your questions as soon as I can. But thanks for tuning in, and we'll see you guys in the next one. So long for now.